In 1929, Georgia Tech played California in the Rose Bowl. In the first half, a player on the California team named Roy Regals recovered a Tech fumble, got turned around, and in the excitement, he ran 69 yards in the wrong direction. As he was about to score for the other team, a Cal teammate tackled him. Roy Regals was devastated. At halftime, the players went to the locker room. Regals sat in the corner with his face in his hands and wept. Just before the second half, Coach Price sent his players back on the field. Roy didn't move. Coach called out to Roy, and Roy replied, "Coach, I can't do it. I've ruined you. I've ruined myself. I've embarrassed the university. I can't face that crowd to save my life." Coach Price said, "Roy, get up and go back out there. The game is only half over." Those who played that day say that when Roy Regals went back into the game, they never saw a man play football as Roy Regals played in the second half. Now, Regals' team lost 8-7, giving Tech its second national championship. But it's neither the score nor the championship that football history still talks about 85 years later. It's the motivational way that Roy, wrong way, Regals performed when he got back on the field. My friends, this is also the message Yom Kippur urges us to consider. No matter how far we may have gone in the wrong direction, no matter what mistakes we may have made, irrespective of how long we've lived, we always face the choice to give up or go on in response to whatever befalls us. We can believe that the game is over even when it isn't, or we can believe that we can change direction by viewing tomorrow as a new beginning and summoning the strength to start anew. So now you know why Yom Kippur has long been my favorite Jewish holiday of the year. The spiritual message of these next 24 hours is that a fresh start is always possible if we are serious about making it happen. Yom Kippur is called Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, but Judgment Day is not what most people think. It is not God's decision that this day is ultimately about. This day is about our decision or indecision to get back on the field of life and try again. And perhaps that's why tomorrow is as important, if not more so, than tonight. The time for digging deep is not after dinner when we're not hungry. It's tomorrow afternoon when the fast kicks in for those who are able. Will we answer tomorrow's gut check by doing the same old, checking our phones for texts and football scores? Or will we face our true selves and answer like Roy Regals did when he got turned around? Will we muster the resolve to get back on the field of life in a more significant way now that a new year has begun, whether that means changing our behavior, our outlook, our language, or our life direction? The uniform we wear on Yom Kippur isn't a football jersey and pads, though it is a tradition to wear white kippot, or to dress in white, not because it's pretty, but to acknowledge our mortality. White is the color of the Jewish burial shroud, but we do not wear white to evoke depression. We are to wear white to remind us that our sins can become white as snow, not only when we die, but while we're still alive, if we are truly sorry. So we fast, my friends, not just to become sensitized to those who are hungry every day. We're supposed to fast a mini death, only to be born again unto life 24 hours later. when the Tekiah Gedolah revives us. Now, this may be news to many of you, but it's the essence of Yom Kippur theologically. God loves us so much that if we are sincerely willing to make a change in Judaism, we're not only forgiven, we can begin a new chapter in our lives if we will it. As solemn and haunting as the beautiful Kol Nidre melody Cantor Kaplan chanted earlier, the core message of Yom Kippur is rather upbeat and optimistic. We can improve ourselves and the world if we are willing to meet God and others halfway. And friends, isn't that the way it is in every relationship? I know there's some Teach for America people here, and I think they'll agree with me. The student who benefits most in a classroom is usually the student who matches a teacher's readiness to teach with his or her own readiness to learn. The closest friendships people enjoy are those in which both friends put in more than they take out. The most fulfilling marriages are clearly those in which partners are at least as much concerned for the other as one is for him or herself. And friends, Judaism goes even one step further. B'makom she'ein anashim, Hillel omer hishtadel lihiyot ish, which means even in a place where other people aren't making the effort to meet you halfway or to be decent. Make the effort, Rabbi Hillel says. Strive to be human, not just within your home or at work or at school, but even to total strangers. What others do to you, you can't control, but what you do to and for others, including your willingness to forgive, is very clearly a matter of your own choosing. And this explains Yom Kippur's focus on self-repair, what we call in Judaism tikkun la'atzmi. Yom Kippur has lately become the greatest 24 hours at Temple, as it should be. Purim is the happiest. Confirmation Shabbat could well be dubbed the proudest, since it's the official start of adulthood at 16 rather than becoming a bar bat mitzvah dropout at 13. The most emotional Shabbat, for sure, is the second Friday in May, when our high school seniors leave home. Tomorrow we will introduce and consecrate the class of 14 at our 1:30 Yom Kippur Ruach offering, with the hope that these 18-year-olds will not wait any longer than they need to deepen their life with Judaism's teaching and to become mensches. Not waiting, starting now to turn ourselves around on this life journey is what we chanted in Kol Nidre, and it's also the main idea in a graduation message Ben Sisman passed on to me by Syracuse University professor George Saunders. Saunders posed what he thinks is the one question every graduate ought to ask an older person. The older, the better. What's the one question? Looking back on your life, what do you regret? What struck me was the answer Saunders gave. What do I regret? He asked. Being poor from time to time? Not really. Working terrible jobs? No, I don't regret that, he said. Skinny dipping in a river in Sumatra, a little buzzed, and looking up and seeing 300 monkeys sitting on a pipeline, pooping down into the river in which I was swimming with my mouth open, naked? He says, I even got over that too. So what did Saunders regret? He answers, there was a new kid, Ellen, who joined my 8th grade class. She had blue cat's eye glasses that at that time only old ladies wore. Ellen wasn't bullied, just ignored. Saunders imagined Ellen's mother asking her after school, "So how was your day, sweetie?" And Ellen probably answered, "Oh, fine." And her mother would say, "Making any friends?" And Ellen probably said, "Sure, lots." Sometimes, Saunders continued, I would see Ellen hanging around alone in her front yard, as if afraid to leave it. And then one day, they moved. That was it. No tragedy, no big final hazing. One day Ellen was there, next day she wasn't. End of story. Now, why 42 years later, he asks, why am I still thinking about it? I mean, relative to most of the other kids, I was actually pretty nice to her. I never said an unkind word to her. But still, it bothers me, he says, because looking back, what I regret most in my life are failures of kindness. Those moments when another human being was there, right there, standing in front of me, sometimes suffering, and I responded reservedly, mildly. One of the gifts of growing older I did not mention in my Rosh Hashanah sermon is that for many people, being kinder gets easier as we grow older. Why? Because growing older leads people to see how useless it is to be selfish. Saunders has a tip, therefore, to save young people and the rest of us lots of time, and it's this. If life for many of us will become a gradual process of becoming kinder and more loving, why wait? Why not hurry up? Speed it along. Start right now. If we're honest about it, perhaps the reason we wait too far into the second half of our lives is because of our own selfishness. Too few of us realize until we're older, and get this, that happiness really isn't about ourselves. Selfishness is about ourselves. Happiness is about others. Now, this isn't a party pooper message. Even Saunders in his talk urges graduates to do all the ambitious things in life like travel, make money, fall in love, even swim in wild jungle rivers. But he concludes, when you do all that, err to the extent you can in the direction of kindness. Because he says, you will appreciate this advice looking back on your life. So the upbeat message of the seemingly sad Yom Kippur holiday is that we can change. We can get back on the field like Regals, and we can minimize regrets by being kinder sooner. That is the universal message. Ditto for American Jews, whose latest hallmark is more apathy than involvement. We care so much about sports, we lose our voices screaming as spectators for today's Roy Regals on the field. But too many American Jews are cardiac Jews. They feel it in their hearts, yet they stay on the sidelines without considering that they and you and we are the only players left on the Jewish bench. And that's not a sad thing. It's a miracle that there are any Jews left on our bench. It's a miracle that we're still here. For me, a close rabbinic friend said in a small group I'm a part of, the single most powerful proof for the existence of God is that we Jews are still here. Without God's existence, he said, our survival is inexplicable. With God, our survival is miraculous. And the survival of the Jewish people provides our calling to care for ourselves when no one else does, and to care for others when no one else will. Perhaps many of you feel like my friend. even if you hardly come to services. We Jews are part of a people that has suffered every manifestation of human evil, from the tortures of the Inquisition to the massacres of the Crusades in Europe, from the humiliation of the pogroms in Eastern Europe to the crematoria of the Holocaust. And through it all, we are still here. We have survived and thrived in places as unlikely as Memphis, Tennessee, not as an ever-dying people, but as an ever-living people, and that is rather remarkable. But what about the future? If those of us 50 and older think Jewish survival and the state of Israel is a miracle in itself, and even if younger folks agree, why should future generations care? I suppose that Jewish survival will continue to be a tribal instinct for some, and I learned that, my friends, most poignantly from an expectant Jewish mother raised in another synagogue. She scheduled an appointment with me along with her husband, a great guy who is a devout practitioner of another faith. And because this Jewish woman's husband went to his house of worship more than she ever went to her shul, the couple figured that while mom would always remain Jewish, their child would follow dad's religious tradition. I get it, I said to her. Don't worry, I said. You can still be Jewish, and I and Temple will help you any way we can. And then she said the words I hear a lot at home. You don't understand what I'm saying, Rabbi. Only she said it with tears in her eyes. She said, I'm pregnant. And now that I feel this baby in my belly, I don't want to be the end of the line. Judaism will end with me, Rabbi, and it's that cord I don't want to cut. Despite her difficult situation, she was really saying what many of you probably feel right now. I'm Jewish because my family's Jewish, and I want Judaism to survive and future generations to feel strongly about their Judaism too. By the way, my real heroes in this regard are not the Jewish partners in a marriage, but those who are not Jewish, who support and raise Jewish families, so that the Jewish story will continue from generation to generation. The tribal instinct is powerful, but it will not be enough for Judaism to survive and thrive in an open society where you can be or not be whatever you choose. Besides, why does one have to continue Judaism to still love your parents? There are just as many people, far more in fact, who love their parents who aren't Jewish. So what are the compelling reasons to keep Judaism alive beyond the continuing saga of Jewish survival? Just two tonight. One is that the world could really use Jews and Judaism to make the world better. How do I know that? When the Commercial Appeal religion editor asked me to comment on a topic for the Faith in Memphis section of our newspaper, I said, sure, thinking that it was one quote he wanted. I didn't realize it would be a weekly deal. Now I get stopped everywhere I go. I'm sure Rabbi Danziger, who writes occasionally, does too. I get stopped not by Jews, but by Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Starbucks baristas, and others who remind me of Jewish teachings I shared in the newspaper last year that I've already forgotten about. The more I study myself and teach and share Jewish texts and teachings, the clearer it is to me that Memphis and the world need Judaism for the building of a more compassionate, just, and peaceful future. Finally, for those of you who want a more personal reason for embracing Judaism like never before and getting back on the field, no matter what your age, let me put it this way. The added value of Judaism is a life of value. And the values of Judaism for every year of your life. And with lifespan exceeding 80, that means that These kids who are finishing college, they're not even in the second quarter yet of the 4 quarters. And even if you're in Moses' last quarter of life, if you're over the age of 90, it's still not too late to get back on the field and make a difference in this lifetime in some way. For the purpose of Judaism and all these Yom Kippurs is not to get what you want. It's to become the best you can be, even if you've been running in the wrong direction for 69 yards. Roy Regals didn't get what he wanted, friends, a national championship, but he became the best he could be. And that's why every motivational speaker in sports knows this guy. The game isn't over, friends. A new year has begun. So when tomorrow's closing service ends, get back out there on the playing field of life and make a difference like never before. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be for all of us. And let us say,